I just sat down with a potential client the other day, and I said, what keeps you up at night? And he said, honestly, what keeps me up at night is not knowing if I'm doing enough. Very, very broad, very, very whole. And after discussing with him and his wife, I did give them a little bit of homework. But after digging down, I gave him some things to do that I said, this is probably actually going to make you sleep better at night because you have a better plan, or you know where your money's going, and we're going to know that it's going to be enough. But it was a lot different than just, overall anxiety of not knowing.
All right. Ready? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Money Therapy. We're glad that you joined us today. We got some really cool stuff for you. I am going to be one of your hosts today, Brandon Chasteen, and this is
Bill McGill,
my esteemed partner. We are financial planners. We own Harpeth Wealth, and Money Therapy is our way of helping people that we don't directly serve. And we're also happy, if you're listening, feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Your questions, one, we want to answer. We want to be there to help you. But two, it can also lead to additional content for us to create. Because if you're having a question, there is likely somebody else having the same question or a very similar question. So please feel free to reach out. You can go to harpethwealthpartners.com, check us out, read about us, do your homework on us, whatever you want. Also, we're on social media. We're, on your obviously favorite podcast platform, but we're also on YouTube. Feel free to stay connected, get connected, and send me an email. My email is going to be in the show notes, bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. I'll get you on my insiders list. The insiders list, we send out an email every Sunday. It is our show notes. You get them 2 days before the podcast. And what that really does is it allows you to think about what we're going to talk about without any of our own bias. Then you get to listen to us talk about our stuff. And hopefully, one, that helps you learn. It helps it get into your brain a little deeper. Two, you can start to agree or disagree with us and make it your own thought or idea and apply it to your life in a unique way. But also it might spur some deeper conversation, and we'd love to have that stuff. So, check the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening to a podcast, because we are putting a lot of information in there for you to connect with us. But also today, we have something to give you. We're going to give you some exercise. We're going to give you some homework to do, because this topic is so important, not just to your finances, but to your entire life. I promise it will change you and change the way you see a lot of things. I'm going to jump to the end of the show notes here and just give you this quote by Stephen R. Covey. He said, "It's easy to say no when there is a deeper yes burning within." And we are going to talk today on how values trump everything else.
Yep.
What is important to you?
Yeah.
And that's a hard question to answer. It was hard for me to answer until I learned that there's a few things that there's first of all, experts. Almost everything that I'm giving you today has been borrowed from someone else. Mm-hmm. And the leader in kind of this space for our accessibility and how he presents, and the person you're going to want to go to listen to a lot of his thought is Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. Huge YouTube presence, lots of good books. I see him a lot on my LinkedIn profile. Definitely follow, listen, but we're going to point you into a couple directions specific to him because, some people are very, very insightful. Some people have this ability to like look within themselves and get really deep into their own like behaviors and psychology, but some people aren't.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's just hard. You're just like, hey, who are you? What's important? You're like, I'm hungry and I want food.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Sometimes getting down to the values of what people really want is kind of, really one of the things that we're focusing on today. I mean, as financial professionals, I spend the majority of my first appointment just discussing goals and values and trying to get to the bottom of what's important to you. And there's all sorts of tips and tricks and ways that we go about that. And Simon Sinek, he's just got one very effective way of doing that.
yeah. Yeah. So buckle up because we're going to talk about this, and hopefully the outcome of today's show is I am challenging you to do something after listening to this podcast. It is incredible, the statistics about how many times in a person's life people will receive life-changing information
Yes.
and do nothing with it.
Do nothing
It's
about it.
like there's legitimate studies and statistics out there that people frequently pass up opportunities that could be trajectory changing for the rest of their life. And I think that this is one of those moments. This is something for you. Again, it's not even most of it. 90% of this probably, or maybe more, is not my original thought. But it's things that I've heard and pieces that I've collected, and I want to repackage it for you because it has changed how I've done things, how I've viewed things. It's empowered me, but it's also I've used this with my clients in those first and second appointments, and it's changed my clients' lives as well. I've seen it. I've seen the outcome. So buckle up. I really do feel like this might be a little bit longer than our typical 20 to 25 minute episode, just because we have a lot to unpack, but we'll do our best, and whatever time we take from you, we just hope that it's incredibly valuable. So with that, what is important? Why is money important? We're going to, I want to talk, first of all, I'm going to give you an example here. So meet Sarah. Sarah is a hard-charging professional whose career required her to be super competitive. She is absolutely a type A personality. We know these people. And she works long hours. She's driven, and she's very successful and very good at what she does. And people look up to her. She's an inspiration to many people around her. And you know a Sarah, right? Like, somebody who's just like, they're just good and they're driven and they're successful and they just don't stop working. I know a guy that he has told me that 99% of the time for lunch, he doesn't step away from the desk. He actually orders one of those like IV companies to come give him an IV at his desk because he is like crushing it so much. Now, wow. I am not recommending that, right? But that's a type A trait for sure. And this dude is insanely like successful.
Yeah.
Right? So Sarah, I'm talking with her, and I want to start not by talking about her success and not talking about her income. I just ask the simple question, what's really important to you? Mm-hmm. And Sarah's response is freedom. She said financial freedom, but freedom, right? She wants financial freedom. She wants freedom in her life. Now, immediately in my brain, this is not what I responded with, but in my brain, my wheels start turning, thinking, okay, you're a corporate like stallion, right? You're just changing the world and winning deals, and you're type A. Like, you don't just want financial freedom; you want time for every facet of your life probably is being demanded in some capacity, pulling you away from what does matter. But I think a lot of us would say that the response of what really matters, what's important, why are we here, what do we have to accomplish for this to be a successful meeting, for her to say financial freedom, that's pretty profound in and of itself, right? That's insightful. There's thought there. But we don't stop there, right? So one of the tricks or tips that I will give you in dealing and working through this for yourself or with someone that you love, or if somebody's trying to do this with you, is something I think we've all probably played the game, 7 Whys or the activity. But the 7 Whys is simply this notion that we're going to talk about something. I'm going to ask you a variation of a why question 7 times.
Yeah.
Right. So we didn't stop with just that first answer. My next question is, why is freedom important to you? Right. What is most important? She says freedom. My next response is, why is freedom important? She says, I need more time. Okay, so this isn't even about finances.
Yeah.
This is actually about the time piece.
Yeah.
She's not even in her brain or her heart. She is not even thinking about the financial landscape. She just feels time being pulled from her.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is time so critical right now? I asked you what's important. You could have said anything. Freedom. Freedom could have meant anything. Time. Why is time so important that right now you're bringing it up in front of me?
Yeah.
I just want time to have a family and raise a child.
Yeah.
Boom. Family. Child. She wants to be a mom.
Yeah.
Sarah's in a position, right? So just go with me for a second here. If I do my 1-page plan, and on my 1-page plan at the top, I have value statement, right? And then we have those goals.
Yeah.
If goal number 1 was freedom, right? And Sarah's like 6 months from now, like, man, I really want to buy this new car, right? How much conviction? First of all, could purchasing a car be construed as freedom, financial freedom? Like if I have the ability to buy a car, that's freedom, right? I'm financially freed enough to make decisions and do things. So yeah, so she could justify buying a new car and still not be happy.
Yeah.
Right? Second of all, if there was something where buying the new car didn't just, like if freedom, let's just pretend it didn't justify buying the new car, how much conviction in her heart does she have versus that emotion right away buying, like, I want to buy the car, but I also want freedom. Well, that's generic. Car wins. I'm buying a new car. I'm unhappy still.
Yeah.
Right? But if goal number 1 says have a family and become a mother,
Yeah.
boom, all of a sudden that's hitting the heartstrings.
Yeah.
There's not much more important to Sarah than that.
Yeah.
And it's very specific.
Yeah.
And it's hitting her in her soul. Now all of a sudden, again, Stephen Covey, it's easy to say no when there's a deeper burning yes inside somewhere, right? Or when we discover that. So it's easy to say no when there's a deeper yes burning within.
Yeah.
So we got to get to the why. We got to get to the core, the root, and we got to dig and we got to scrap. So 7 whys. I'm going to ask why. We could go on. That's where I stopped in the show notes, but I could ask the question, well, why is being a mother so important? Right? What could I learn about a potential relationship when she tells me how much her mother meant to her? Right? Or maybe she has all these fond memories and she lost her mother and she just wants to do that, to give that to someone else. Like, what can I learn about someone by just continuing to dig?
Yeah.
Right? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. What speaks to me is, it's easy to say no when there's a deeper yes burning within. And we've talked about this before, but our jobs as financial professionals is to, find a way to get to those heartstrings and figure out what's actually important to the people. And then give them options around that goal, around that true goal. But if we just start at, Bill, I need to open, I need to prepare for retirement. Okay, well then we're just going to do an IRA, 401k, blah, blah, blah. And this will be your income and it's done. And I've done no work to figure out if that actually is going to, make the life that you're envisioning in the future. I have no idea if I've hit the mark or not.
Yeah.
And we could discuss all day about the different pictures people have for their futures and for their lives. But I think it's important what we're focusing on here today is the process of getting to that and sharing that with the viewer as a way to maybe shortcut that a little bit and give the viewer more tips and tricks to do that as well. We mentioned Simon Sinek. The one video that we've seen over and over is a TED Talk on YouTube called Start With Why.
And that's going to be in the show notes. We're going to put a link to Simon Sinek's video, and I want you after this to finish this episode first, but click over, watch his video, because that's going to get you. It's going to get you the right brain space to do this with your spouse or with someone you love, or even just do this by yourself.
Yeah.
But watch that video.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's such a great video to take time to reflect on yourself, and that's kind of a version of what we're doing when we use the 7 whys to get down to the nitty-gritty details of why this person came or sought out me for my professional financial advice. Why did this person come here? What's the real thing? We've talked about this before in past episodes as well. I love to use the phrase, what keeps you up at night?
Right.
What are you worried about? I just sat down with a potential client the other day, and I said, what keeps you up at night? And he said, honestly, what keeps me up at night is not knowing if I'm doing enough. Very, very broad, very, very whole. And after discussing with him and his wife, I did give them a little bit of homework. But after digging down, I gave him some things to do that I said, this is probably actually going to make you sleep better at night because you have a better plan or where your money's going. And we're going to know that it's going to be enough. But it was a lot different than just, overall anxiety of not knowing.
Yeah.
Right. We actually, what about not knowing makes you uneasy? And
right. You asked the next question, right?
Yeah. You asked
why
the next question.
Does this?
And it makes it easier for me to actually diagnose and fix the problem. Mm-hmm. Right.
And I love that you said that, because I think, yes, part of my selfish ambitions in this podcast is, one, I meet people all the time that think they have an idea. I meet 2 different types of people generally. Yeah. There's 3 different types. We'll talk about the first 2. First, number 1, they have no idea what I do for people.
Right.
Then there's the second person that thinks they know what I do and they're completely wrong.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of the selfish ambitions behind one of the facets of this podcast is I want people to understand, and it's not just us. I'd love to be the only financial dude out there that is just crack the code here, but there's a lot of great financial advisors out there, and a lot of times, you mentioned it, Bill, but the thing is people come in and they're like, oh, I'm going to see a money guy, so I need to say the word retirement.
Yeah. You
don't need to say that word if it's not true. I don't want you to say that word if it's not true.
Yeah. We've started using work optional.
Yeah. I just
just open the brain a little bit.
I need none of that, right? I need you to come in and tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
I need you to come in and tell me what keeps you up at night. I need you to come in and tell me your soul, just what is burning inside of you. And that's what I need. And I need you to get there, because if I can understand that, I can do the money stuff to align your dollars with your heart.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic when I think about this a lot. And again, it's perfect that we call this money therapy because, and we've used, I've told people before, I'm a financial coach or I'm a financial therapist in a lot of different ways, because when people come to us, a lot of times they feel that they need to have answers and they're going to wait for me to ask questions about their finances. Right. And their answers have to be financial in the financial area. Right. But what's kind of funny is if I'm doing my job correctly, I'm asking very open-ended why questions.
Yeah.
And they're doing most of the talking. And if I'm doing my job correctly, we probably in the first, 15, 20, 30 minutes of our, hour appointment, we probably haven't even talked about we've definitely haven't talked about how much money they make. We, may not have even touched on personal finance. I'm just trying to really drill down, what makes this person tick and what's important to them.
Yeah, and I want to just go right there because you said something that I want to make a point for our listeners. If you're going to try to discover or find a deeper meaning to like why in life, I think what I want you to do is start framing your questions with why and not with what.
Yeah.
So when you ask a question, phrase it in a way that you're asking why. And there's something in our brain that basically will tell us if I ask you what is your name, you think of a definitive answer and your brain stops thinking about it. Once it's found the answer, you communicate it and it's gone. You're done thinking about that. If I ask you why are you named Bill?
Yeah.
Right? Not only are you going to think, yes, my name is Bill, you're going to affirm that to me. We're going to confirm that, but you're also going to be starting to wonder. So why increases the wonder? It intrigues us and it makes us curious, where what tells our brain to find the answer and deliver it. So in that sense, what I want you to do is start asking yourself or start asking other people why.
Yeah.
And if you need to ask the what, just find a way to ask it in a why way, because you're still going to get the what.
Yeah.
Why are you named? What's your name? Well, my name's Bill because I have mom and dad, and they named me Bill. Maybe it's a family name. I'm sure, maybe somewhere in there that came into play, right? So you can find out so much more. And not only am I answering my curiosity, I'm finding out more, but his brain, after that question's answered, it's still going to be there. It's going to linger, and they'll come back with more information. So we ask why, not what.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. I wanted to drive that home.
Ted Lasso, be curious.
Be curious. So again, I want you to go to the show notes, YouTube or podcast, and check out the link for the Simon Sinek video. Start with why. Simon Sinek also made a book. His TED Talk into a book. Start with why. He has a team, or at least a couple guys. I don't know the relationship exactly, but they wrote a workbook called Find Your Why.
Yeah.
And you can read the book and then have the workbook. It's really, really great. But inside of this workbook, there's an activity, and honestly, I've been using this activity for a while with clients and with some people. Going through some coaching stuff, but I don't remember exactly what Simon called or in this book what it was called. I call the activity above the line and below the line. Mm-hmm. So all we're doing in this activity is, and I actually have it kind of an example right there, right? So all I'm doing on a piece of paper is we're drawing a line down the middle, okay, and everything that is. I just start recalling memories from my life. I think back, to my childhood years. I think back to, through my past jobs, past professions, my high school years, college years. I think back through, early professional years. I think through my family. Mm-hmm. I think through all these things. And even when I talk to a client about doing this exercise, I kind of suggest that's where I want your brain to go. I want you to go back to your childhood years. I want you to think about recent years, but I want you to think about your work, your profession, your relationships. I want you to think about all these things. And any memory that comes to mind, I don't care. And here's the thing, is our memories, we don't need to write down the entire memory.
Yeah.
We just need a key word that can trigger that to come back up later. So if it is a positive memory, I write it above the line. If it's a negative memory or a bad memory, I write it below the line.
Yeah.
And the worse that it is, or the better that it is, the further away from the line that I. So a phenomenal memory for me is my daughter's birth.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wrote my daughter's name way at the top of the page. She's the top memory.
Yeah.
Right. Someone very, very important to me was my grandmother. She passed away, and that is probably the most devastating thing because of how close I was, what she meant to me. So that is like at the bottom of the line, right? Well, at the bottom of the page. And then there's things that are close to the top, close to the middle, because they're memories, but they're not that great, or they're not that, comparatively.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wrote down, we did this on our pieces of paper.
Yeah.
We took, in show prep, Bill and I just kind of did this. And in 3 minutes, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things in 3 minutes.
Yeah. And I had similar.
So inside of, if you gave yourself or gave someone about 15 minutes to do this, you could potentially come up with all kinds of, and you're just writing down one word, right? It's not a lot. So what I ended up doing is, after our 3 minute time slot, I went back and I circled the 3 memories that were the furthest away from the line that are good, and 3 memories furthest away from the line that are bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have 3, and so then what we would do was, like, Bill and I would trade papers, right? And Bill gets to tell me 6 stories, 3 really good ones and 3 really bad ones. And grab your tissue boxes, because when we're telling the bad stories, you're going to get emotional. And honestly, when you're telling the great stories, you're probably going to get emotional too, right? This is emotion. But I am going to stop. I'm not going to talk, and I'm going to let Bill tell 6 stories, whether it takes 6 minutes or 6 hours. Bill gets to now. In the Find Your Why book,
Bill, please don't take 6 hours.
In the Find Your Why book, it does say that you probably want to try to, like, if a story does take an hour to tell, take a break, because our brain stops to be able to really process things. That's why we don't try to shoot for hour-long podcast. But in this thing, I'm going to tell Bill 6 stories about my life. Bill's going to listen.
Yeah.
And he's going to listen hard, and he's not going to talk. He's going to take notes. And the notes that he's taking, he's not taking notes on my story just to remember my story. He's taking notes on the themes of things. Now, if I say something interesting and he's starting to notice the theme, he might ask a little question, but like, can you tell me more about that? Right? Like in your story, you're telling me about your grandmother. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about what you remember from your grandmother when you were young? Right? Where'd she live? What her house smell like? You can ask these little questions, to get a little bit more information. But what you want to do is you want to let the stories be told, and you're listening for themes.
Right.
So in my story, I've done this exercise a couple times with different people, and typically my theme is, my number one theme in every story has to do with a relationship. There's no fantastic memory that I have, good or bad, that really just is me by myself.
Right.
The relationship matters, right? There's also themes about impact. Like, not only were these relationships, but there's moments of impact. Either me receiving impact or having impact on someone. That's really, really important.
Yeah.
Another common theme is community.
Yeah.
Right? I went through a time period of life when I didn't have a sense of community. I've also been very, very blessed to be plugged in and feel like an important part of a community. So these are all themes that, it doesn't matter what story I tell, the good ones or the bad ones. The bad ones, the relationships I've lost. Yeah. Right? It's impact. It's people of impact that are gone now. Yeah. Right? It's being not belonging, or not having a community around me, being isolated. So that's above the line and below the line. And through these themes and through these impacts, now when we're saying, hey, what's your goal? Now I can help Bill write his goals in a way that is thematic to the most important values of his life. Bill can be like, hey, I want financial freedom. Yeah. Well, okay, let's figure out how relationship and community and impact, can we rewrite the word financial freedom into a statement that incorporates these things, right? So now I have a value statement that is, if this, then this. And that's all in the Find Your Why workbook, which I'd highly encourage. And also, I have the workbook. So if you want to reach out to me, we can do this together. I love doing this with people. It really fills my cup up. Again, relationships and impact.
Yeah.
So if you want to take me up on that, I am happy to take it an hour or two. And whether we do it via Zoom or whether we're close enough to sit down and do it over a cup of coffee, I would love to take some time to help you understand you and find these themes so you can have a deeper yes, a burning inside of you, because then it's easy to say no to crap, right? Like it's easy to walk away and not get hung up on the trivial things.
Yeah.
What you got?
No, I just hope that we were helpful. I mean, it's an interesting conversation. And I think the hard work is up front first, which is finding that why and asking why and all those things. But it can also bring a sense of clarity.
And we all love clarity. This is everything, right? And I mean, the title of the email, the title of the podcast, the title of this topic or thought that I have is values versus everything else.
Yeah.
Values wins every time. That's all I got for you. We did that quicker than what I thought we were going to do it in. A little bit longer, 30-minute episode. But we really appreciate your time. And I hope that if you have a significant other in your life, if you have children, if you have close friends, I hope that you can take time to do this with them. And if you need a rehearsal or you want to talk about it more, bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Let's set up an appointment. You can go to the website. I have my schedule link on my website as well. Get connected. Bill's available. Again, harpethwealthpartners.com. You can just click a link and email Bill if you want to. But we are here for you, and we hope this was helpful.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Adios.
Bye, guys. We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.